to the Well. I am Brandon Edgens.
And I'm Anson Mount.
And Anson, when was the first time you had heard of the Hmong?
That would have been, I guess, when I got to know Sharon. I don't think I'd ever heard that term before. Obviously didn't know how to spell it. I was not aware of the history, our history, Vietnam, none of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't either. I met Sharon, and she has a whole prepared spiel because very few people know who the Hmong are. And I will save her from having to do that spiel again. And I will say, without sounding too mechanical, the Hmong are an indigenous ethnic minority that lives in southern China along the northern border of Laos, Thailand, Myanmar, mountain folk, essentially. And a lot of them are in America now because before the Vietnam War, there was the Secret War, which was mostly in Laos, and that consisted of the CIA training locals to fight the communists. And the locals that we picked and trained were the Hmong, because they lived in a border region, so they made convenient allies. And there was a tacit agreement that if we lost the war, that they can come live with us. And, well, we all know how that went. So now there are a lot of Hmong here, mostly concentrated in Minnesota, Merced, California. There's pockets here and there, Fresno. Yeah. And there's a pocket down in North Carolina, down in the mountains. There's a little bit everywhere. But I'd say Minnesota and Fresno are the real big centers. And, as a minority, they've always had a little bit of trouble getting their story out there. Although there was an attempt back in 2008, a little film called Gran Torino.
Get off my lawn. You better watch your back.
Thank you.
Probably one of the first commercial films that tried to bring the Hmong story to the big screen. But, it was directed and written by white people. And so it got a lot of important details wrong. In the end, the Hmong didn't really own that story. They didn't really get to tell their story their way. But it was Doua's first big role. He played Spider in Gran Torino, the bad guy, the villain.
That's my little cousin over there.
Sure that's your cousin, man?
Fuck yeah, that's my little cousin.
You tight with anybody?
No, he flies solo, man.
Fly solo?
And he gets to be one of the only, maybe the first, maybe the only, certainly one of the very few actors to get to pretend kill Clint Eastwood, which is pretty cool. So Doua has already accomplished a lot. He has killed Clint Eastwood, and he has brought a completely authentically Hmong film to the big screen. But that was all a little bit later. We first met Doua back in 2003 or so when Sharon was starting the Hmong NYC Facebook group, and immediately found this kid, Doua Moua, and they started the group together, and they kind of planted the seed that's grown into a community that's now, I don't even know how many there are. There might be 50 at least, but it used to be that we would have these gatherings here in my apartment. Sharon would host, and at first it was like 4 people, and then it was 8, and it was 12, and then it was 20, and then it was, we need to rent a community center now. We can't.
I kind of got to witness this happen from the outside.
Yeah, right. So it's not unusual to have a large gathering of Hmong people in our apartment. But a few months ago, we had a very special occasion and a very special reason to have such a gathering, which is that Doua, who's an actor, wrote a script years ago called The Harvest. It's semi-autobiographical. And he allowed us to have a little sneak peek, a little early screening of his film, The Harvest, here in the apartment. And it was just, it was beautiful to play it to a group of people who have never seen their story on the screen like that before. And just the excitement and pride that they had after that film was over. Well, you can hear it here.
Yeah, he just I'm so proud. Because when he started, I'm so proud. Yeah. No, when he started, it was Chinese. Yeah, he's Chinese. He did so good.
Yeah, he did a really good job.
And this gathering is happening in our apartment because Sharon, my wife, who is Hmong, invited everyone over to have this screening. And she very graciously decided to take over hosting duties on this episode. So what you're about to hear is Sharon in conversation with Doua Moua, the writer and star, and Perry Young, who plays his father in the movie. Here's Sharon.
We started Hmong NYC because I had space and I'm kind of a natural host, and Doua was the social recruiter. So you're always like sending me texts, I found another one.
It started out to be like 5 and then 10, and then now it's like over 50 people, and with a baby now too. Like it's so amazing and beautiful, you know, to see the growth of such this small community. And then you and Brandon been in New York for such a long time, and you guys were kind of like our mother and father hen, and took us under your arms and protect us.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of feedback I've heard from like New Yorkers, Hmong New Yorkers who came in, was just that their parents were so relieved that there was a community here. And still randomly people are like, oh, I just Googled Hmong in New York and I found you.
Can I say I was really impressed at the last Hmong NYC gathering. I think where I met you, there was a woman visiting from Paris.
Oh, yeah.
Said, right? Like, I just found you somehow on Facebook, and here I am, and I don't know anyone. And she was having an amazing time, and she just felt kind of moved to be in a community that she didn't know, but it was a Hmong community she could drop into just by being Hmong. It was quite amazing.
Yeah, Perry, you had an experience with that too, because you came to an event or two, and we kind of just like glommed onto you.
Well, you know, at that same event, I met that baby. And you were all so proud of that baby because it was the first Hmong baby born in New York City.
Yeah, yeah.
That baby's going to be famous. It's a tight community and very warm and welcoming. And I have so much gratitude to be a part of it in some ways.
For me, coming to New York City, knowing the fact that like I had 2 cousins that was going to also go to New York City, my parents are kind of like, okay, you have 2 cousins. You know, that was Andrew and that was Linda Mochapao. And so like we kind of had like this small 3 of us are like, oh, we're going to New York together. So I went to Marymount Manhattan College to study communication psychology. And on the side, I was going to acting school, you know, different studios in New York City. And from there, you know, it's such a hard road. I had this like moment of identity crisis of like not sharing that I was Hmong, because back then it was so authentically, you had to be Chinese, Japanese, Korean to play those roles, you know? So I think I would probably talk to Sharon a couple of times of like, oh, should I tell people that I'm Hmong? Should I be proud of it? You know? So that played a big factor of my acting career, even today, where it's like, you have to be technically that Asian culture to play that role. So there was like this limitation of playing other Asian culture that no one is writing about, you know, so no one's writing about the Hmong culture besides Grey's Anatomy. And then eventually you get to Gran Torino, you know, so that was kind of like the opening part of, okay, people is going to allow me to start playing my ethnicity in movies. And after Gran Torino, it was pretty much like, oh, there's nothing. And Asian was not really in at the moment. We didn't have a Crazy Rich Asian. And the beautiful part about Gran Torino is the Hmong community. And we have those numbers to show that, you know, we have an audience that's watching our movie, our story. But before all that, you know, it was such a struggle. Even my parents today didn't know that, you know, there was like a period of time that I couldn't qualify to rent a apartment. And I was homeless for, you know, probably like a year in New York City. I was couch surfing. I was, you know, I would literally put all my junk into a duffel bag and thank God, like there was a manager at Equinox that understand my situation, and he would like, oh, you just quietly lock your stuff in the lockers and, come work out and, go do your thing. I was like working. I was working at a cafe, at a restaurant. I was like mopping theater studios and stuff like that, and like we'll crash there at nighttime and crash couch surfing, sleep on the bench. I got scared because I got scammed in Harlem. Try to rent a room, and I got scammed, and like half of like my savings went to that. So it was a scary time being a young aspiring actor in New York City trying to make it, and like every single thing you did was kind of like in the wrong in your mind, or you're like, like I screwed up, and like how do I dig myself out of the hole when I put myself in those positions? So.
Yeah, it really broke my heart, Doua, when I read about you, being homeless, because I mean, it's kind of a joke now that we say that we are a Hmong orphanage.
Yeah.
In New York, we bought a 2-bedroom with the explicit understanding that, we always have our door open. So yeah, it's always been, my hope to help guide young Hmong people to a safe place and a safe position in New York and have a positive experience.
You know this well, like being Hmong and me being an underrepresented community, you have to prove people wrong. You have to prove people that you can make it, you could achieve that goal and dream no matter what, and that was my pride of like not sharing a lot about, my earlier years in New York City. If I didn't live through that, I wouldn't be who I am today. If I didn't live, having the support that you and Brandon and the Hmong NYC community to be there for me emotionally, like I wouldn't be who I am today. There's more Hmong women in New York City than Hmong guys. So like I had this group of sisters that helped shape who I am.
I really admire the fact that you went from everything that we just heard to writing this screenplay and believing in it to such a degree that you got it over the finish line, because it normally doesn't. I read a couple of first drafts of not just this story, but a few of the screenplays that you had written. There were just some genre pieces, if I remember correctly. But this one was very personal. And can you tell us a little bit about, why did you write that, and how did you start? How did you get from writing it to the intervening years before you got done, and how Perry came in and saved the day? I'm kidding. I'm editing that out, but.
Yeah, I mean, it literally was after Gran Torino. During college, my dad went through kidney renal failure, and I went through a period of time of, deciding if, I wanted to give my kidney to my dad because of, this obligation, and being the youngest son in the Hmong community, you're obligated to take care of your parents. I did all the testing and stuff like that. My dad basically sat me down, was like, I don't want your kidney. Either you quit acting and come back home and give me your kidney, or I don't take your kid. I don't take your kidney. So he gave me an ultimatum of, quitting acting and coming home, and or continue acting and not give my kidney to my dad. So from there it was just kind of like this idea of this film of like this struggle about obligation. And, I could have written it in a POV of like a Chinese or Korean or Vietnamese or any other Asian ethnicity that is more prominent and marketable in film industry. So, I mean, of course, Sharon and Brandon, like you guys read different drafts of this script from the different perspective of the evolution of the story. Of, at the beginning, it was about more so about father-son relationship, and that eventually now ends up to being more about family dynamic, and how the generational divide and gap between communication with the different generation of immigrants and refugees in America.
And how about, and when it came to getting the thing, putting together the financing and all of that stuff, which is can be a puzzle to solve. What was that portion of it like? And then when did Perry become involved?
Yeah, so the harvest was greenlit, and unlit, greenlit, and unlit, greenlit, and unlit for so many years. So many years, because again, it comes down to like different producers, even Asian producers, wanted to change the ethnicity of the story.
Really?
Yeah. So, or turn it into, a black film or a Latin film. And like when the Asian producers start coming in and read the script and love the script, but they want to change it into their POV, which hence we don't have a lot of Hmong producers. So it's not going to be a Hmong film. And so from there, it's like, as a writer, you're like, I have something beautiful here. If I just continue to stick on my guns, and even though it's like a 10, 11 years process, this film will get made. So literally before the pandemic, the film was greenlit with a different director, a different producer, a different crew, and, a different actor to play everybody besides me. And it was supposed to be, shot in Minnesota. And eventually everything fell apart. And the pandemic kind of like put a pause on everything. I keep watching, like I was locked into my apartment. I keep watching Joy Luck Club like 3-4 times for some reason. It's kind of like the ending of the film where Mina's character was like, told by her mom,
that bad crab, only you try to take it. Everybody else want best quality. You're thinking different. Waverly took best quality crab. You took worst. Because you have best quality heart.
That kind of like for me was like the waking call of me saying, you know what? I need to start saying yes to myself. I need to start saying I'm good enough. So like that kind of propelled me to kind of like talk to my friend John, who's my producing partner. Is like, we're gonna make this film in like a month. I don't care how we do it. We're gonna make it. So it's kind of like everyone's like, no, you're not gonna make this film in wintertime in Minnesota. And then we're like, we're gonna do it. And then eventually we brought in Keely So, who's a Cambodian female director, and she was like, well, I need 2-3 months pre-production. I was like, how about 2? And then she's like, let's shoot it in California, because like, there is a small Hmong community in Long Beach, California. I was like, okay, we could do that. So kind of from there, it was, and then the process of like start finding, we went out to finding the father, we kind of like, I start throwing different names to Kaylee, and eventually I saw Perry's name, like Instagram and Facebook post popped out. I was like, and as I text Kaylee, I was like, what about Perry Young? And she's like, yeah, reach out to him. If he wants to do it, let's do it. And then I kind of DM Perry as like, hey, I have a script. You want to read it? See if you want to be part of it? So that kind of like brought Perry on board to play Chur in The Harvest. So.
Yeah, it's a funny moment. Facebook's a funny thing, right? I have friends that I just crossed paths with on social media, and I've admired Doua from afar. Obviously, I saw the Gran Torino in the theater when it came out, and loved the film, and was always aware that it was one of his most successful films. You hear Gran Torino, it just everyone knows it. So when Doua reached out and asked if I want to read the script, I said, of course. And in reading it, just, right away, I could feel the authenticity of a story, which is like gold right away. The words just start glowing the page, and page after page, I couldn't put it down. It was like, wow, if I get to play Jur, this would be like one of the best roles I've ever been offered, because it's such a real person, and a real person that we never get to see, and a real person, an Asian father that is that we need to bring justice for, because we don't see enough Asian fathers on television and film and Western film.
How did you feel about like getting immersed in the Hmong community and then getting ready for that role? Because it's such a transformation for you?
Well, it's I do have a process about approaching roles, but I wanted to make sure I did this script justice, and I really wanted to just hear the story, and because I know it's a real story, and it was a heartfelt story, and when we get something like that, it's rare. So I don't want to just take it for granted and think that I know what I'm doing and always do what I do. So I just read the script over and over, and really kind of absorb the world that Doua is created or wants to reveal to us. And it's quite a real world with a lot of nuances. We have the antagonist, protagonist, but they're all very rich in their own world if we allow them to be. I could have just played the character, and I know that Doua written it as a very stoic, mean, angry father, but it's like, why is he that way? And it's not in the words why he is that way. It's not in the script, but we know why he is in that way. So I kind of had to do a little bit of digging and mining of my own in terms of looking into like our culture of patriarchy and things like that, of like, and then the learning about the secret war. I had to do a little digging into the Hmong history and why does he have that picture of the general in his living room? What does that mean to him, and why? So I had to bring out, and working with Kaylee also was like, well, we have to make him a real human being. And, so that's a big order. That's a tall order for anyone to just try to come in and take a character off the page and make him a real human being. But I wanted to really and then learn another language on top of that, to have to be authentic with another language is extremely difficult. I mean, I always think that, people think that acting could be easy. And I think acting is difficult, and is even, 100 times more difficult in another language. So I just kind of focused on learning the words without any sort of character first, learning the words, learning the story, and then learning the language as well as I could, and how to pronounce the words properly. And then I just let that sort of simmer and sort of, germinate in me, and without trying to enforce my other process of creating character. And eventually, over 2 weeks of just kind of reading the script over and over and learning the language and meeting local Hmong people from Hmong NYC and doing my history research and watching a lot of YouTube videos of older guys speaking Hmong with an English accent, I sort of feel who Jer was. I just sort of feel him coming out. And, there's not a lot of that sort of angry patriarchal behavior in me. I've worked a lot, very difficult to make sure I don't have that or so to actually sort of explore that in me and find out how I would perform those things was actually kind of challenging. And I didn't want to do injustice. I didn't want to do Asian dads injustice by having sort of a flat anger or, kind of a demeanor about him that's just, one-dimensional. I really needed people to know why he behaved that way. So it was a really rich experience. I say one of the most valuable acting experiences I've ever had.
Whenever we talk about the Hmong community, we always have to go to the secret war, do so much backstory, telling. And you guys kind of went over that a bit, but there was a line that, one of the elders said that kind of cut to the heart, but unfortunately felt a little glossed over. It's just like, you're lucky to have a father to be angry with, because a lot of people lost their fathers, and there was a lot, and then just this enormous loss that all this first generation or, these elders are coming into. They're all here, they're bringing a lot of trauma with them and loss. And yeah, when you start seeing it from their perspective and this huge sense of empathy for their experience, then there is a little bit more understanding for how they, want to preserve their family and preserve their identity.
I mean, I think that's a beautiful part of it. It's with the harvest, and even having conversation with the Vietnamese creatives in Hollywood here. It's we want to immerse into the American culture. We're at the point of, we're at the generation where we're not just about the war. We are American, we came and assimilated and grew up in America, and we want to have a new conversation about not a movie or story, not just talking about the Vietnam War or the Secret War, or the Khmer War. We passed that, and we want to start people to start saying that we are your brothers, we are your friends, and we don't have to have and hence we don't have to have a Gran Torino film where it's like giving you the breakdown, a whole monologue about the secret CIA war. We don't want to see every Southeast Asian story that's being made is about the Vietnam War. And that's how we connect with the American culture, and we're at that point where we're like, we want to tell a flawed character. We want to tell a three-dimensional character. We want to tell stories that does matter and does resonate and does become a universal story that any culture can relate, and not just because of a war,
Well, in the literary community, they call it the single story. For any community, it's always like, oh, our parents suffered so much, and that's why we have to work so hard. And it's like repeated over and over. And that, everybody comes from strife and a background of struggle, but it can't be our only story. And that's why we offer so much more complexity.
So I asked Doua, like, well, what's the Hmong accent? And he goes, well, there's I don't know, there's a lot of Hmong accents, I was like, actually, there's a lot of Chinese American accents too, right? So it's like, they're depending on where they're from, whether they're, Laotian, Laos Hmong, or Vietnamese Hmong, or Chinese Hmong, and whether it's green or white Hmong, and then where are they in America? It's like, it really is a big, diverse community. It's like not all Chinese are the same. Not, when you think about just not all Asians are the same, it's bizarre. Like not all Hmong are the same, right? So it's like I was listening to a lot of Hmong older men speak, and I couldn't really dial in exactly what the accent was, but it was little like, Southeast Asian, Chinese, English. So if I just kind of get in there and commit to it, I think I'll be okay. So it was, it was fun. It was a really fun challenge.
I just wanted to ask you guys both quickly about like just being on a production that's like all Pan-Asian. I mean, that's really unique to have like an Asian director, have all most of the producers being Asian, like to be on a full Asian set. How was that, and how did that dynamic feed into the performances and how things went on set?
It's great, I started acting 30 years ago, and I couldn't do any TV and film, so I just stayed in theater and performance art in New York City, which was, more welcoming of people of color. And then I saw the culture change. It was like, wow, if you stick around long enough, things do change. I never thought I'd see the day where we'd have more than 10 Asian-centered shows right now on television, right? It's amazing. And then, so when I stepped on a set of The Harvest and I met all the creatives, and in hair and makeup, are Asian, and, a Hmong crew came out from Minnesota to apprentice. It's just like, it's like I've lived long enough to see the change, It's amazing. It's wonderful. It's inspiring. There's camaraderie. You want to do better. We're all committed to the story because it hasn't been told yet. So we go the extra mile, because we want to make sure we can do more of this.
Doua, you put them all together. How was the process of finding this and assembling this whole casting crew?
I think for me and my producing partner John, it was more the fact of, giving the opportunity to a underrepresented community was a priority. Even if it's like Black, Latino, Hmong, Vietnamese, Southeast Asian, but just also redefining what diversity and inclusion mean, and literally put 100% into being inclusive. That's the main thing for us. And I think for us, the beautiful thing is choosing the right department heads to make sure they understand what the goal for this film and this production is. The beautiful part of this film is it's 80% woman and 90% Southeast Asian in front and back. And it's a span of Black, LGBTQ, Latin, Southeast Asian, Laos, Thai, Cambodian, Hmong. And it's just a beautiful hub that everyone came together to champion this film.
Well, I just want to add a little bit to that. It's like that, and you didn't consider the commercial aspects of it while you were making in terms of marketing. It's just like, I'm just going to make the best film I could with the best tools and materials that I have, and I'm really inspired by that because it's going to resonate as an amazing thing forever, right? This film, it will just resonate as a beautiful thing that was not sort of didn't have a sort of a capitalistic goal in the sense that we set up like a Hollywood film or TV episodic series that they know how to market it right away and we're going to come together. It's not put together by AI, right? It's a real story and you just made it, in the way you wanted to make it with who you wanted to make it. And it will just resonate as a beautiful thing because of that forever, I think.
Through the film festival run, a lot of professors and colleges that came out and watched the film, like they're ready to try to start the conversation of, how can we screen this film at our college and start using as a Asian American study tool, start building a curriculum around this film to talk about generational gap, or talk about the unspoken war trauma that our parents went through, to start having those conversations with their kids, their students who are studying Asian American and Asian studies, So it's a beautiful thing that I see the longevity of the harvest. No matter what ethnicity you are, it will resonate. It's going to be part of history. It's going to be a communication starter within families or within our internal struggles,
And can I just give a quick shout out to whoever did locations and the art department? Because another note that the group said was like, that whole set, the home was so authentic, like the foil behind the oven. And they're like, man, somebody really took notes because it just felt like a Hmong home. And it felt, like even the food, all the bowls of soup. And to see this represented this way was really, really exciting for all the Hmong kids that watched it. Because we were like, we never see that. And we never see it done correctly and artfully. And like the house itself just felt so familiar to me. I was just like, a lot of Hmong people lived in public housing and they were always just kind of run down, and it felt like a museum piece.
Having Christy Gray, who's our production designer, and having her do, and she's a white woman, and trying to have her do her work and having her talk to different Hmong community in the Long Beach, community of saying, what is the house? And having those open conversation with me and, some of the Hmong crew to be like, is this authentic?
We always talk about representation, and like even visual representation is so significant. It was a really, really exciting element for our group to watch and be like, oh.
The funny thing about when we take the harvest to go through the film festival circuit, it's like a lot of people will watch the movie and like emotionally, it's heartfelt, emotional, crying or laughing and the whole 9 yards about the film. And half of them would be like, I'm trying to make sense of this film. Like I've seen it before, like all these elements, I've seen it before. Like it's been done. And they go back and I would get a message of like, you know what? I lived it. Well, that's the beautiful part of it. It's like, I thought I've seen this film, done many a times, but I came back and I was like, oh my God, this was a slice of my life. For me, the hardest screening for me was in Minnesota because my parents are there. And it was like this whole long dragging conversation of like, with my sibling, like, should mom and dad see this film? Like there's a lot that's going to be going on. And I literally, had this heart to heart with Kaylee, the director, and she's just like, eventually they're going to see it. Just have them see it, So my parents came out and watched the film, and surprising they loved it. Surprising they were crying the whole time. And John, my producing partner, were sitting like a seat ahead of them, and he was hearing like my dad was just bawling the whole time of like, so it's like, if that generation watched this film and could resonate with them, even though my parents is like halfly based on them, it's a beautiful thing, so.
Can I also say that I love the other actors so much? I mean, I love I loved working with them. They were so good on, it was such a great experience on screen that we didn't actually have to talk too much about where they're coming from, what are our motivations for the saying this. It's just all there. You know what I mean? We know the history. It's in us, and, they say that 90% of the movie is done if you cast the right people.
Everyone who came on board as an actor came prepared to on screen bounce things with Perry and capture those moments that aren't on the script.
Mm-hmm.
Those if you go back and watch it, you'd be like, oh, I missed that part. Like Perry says, casting from a producer standpoint, casting the right cast to come and play these different roles within the film and bring that organically to make it real life,
And one of those interesting things about the Hmong community, like you don't talk about dynamics, you don't talk about family things very much. So like it's interesting because it does feel like this is aspirational, but also with a family dynamic that is changing so much in this community, they're like, yeah, I think this is what we are doing. This is what the Hmong families are starting to do because they're starting to understand that there's a lot more going on.
Those moments, it's not just Hmong moments. It's also, when you Perry talk, like, those are moments that you lived with your brother.
Yeah, I was looking at some of my friends who had the very archetypal patriarchal Chinese father who was Confucianist based. So the siblings or the children have to listen to the father, right? The father is the king of the house, and anything he says goes. And I was lucky to have sort of a fun father, that was just, he loved living and enjoyed making things and singing, and he was just a fun guy. So I think I had the rare Chinese father, but I just had to look at some of my friends' fathers when I went to their home, and I was like, oh my God, your dad is so like, whoa, he's a tough one, huh? He goes, what? Well, that's all Chinese fathers, I'm like, no, I don't know, So I just had to think about their fathers and go, yeah, that's right. What they say goes. And they don't talk much. They're just sitting in the living room, smoking a cigarette, and people tiptoe around them, And so, those are real people, So, but my goal is with Jared, the father in The Harvest, was to ask why they're like that.
I think one of the challenges of bringing a character like that to the screen is because they are so stoic and so closed up. And all those things that actors don't naturally want to do, like don't show anything, be all locked up. And there's a particular moment for me, and I won't say when it is, where your character, for all of his stoicism and uptightness and everything, there's a moment in there, and you kind of want to, as a viewer, it's very tempting and natural to kind of like to hate him, to be frustrated with him. And there's a moment in there, and this is the magic of great acting, is that I don't know what you did, but there's a couple of moments in there where I don't know, you could watch it 100 times, I'm not sure what you did, but there's a moment where there's this crack just sort of opens up and you see like, oh, this guy, he's been through so much and look what it's done to him, and he doesn't know how to be different, and he's frustrated with himself, and he's locked into this way of being, but suddenly all the sympathy suddenly like poured out, towards this character. It was a great moment.
Like the look on your face and what you were conveying, and just in terms of feeling shut out from your own family. It was really.
Well, that's the beauty of the great direction and the space and the writing, is that there's space, right? There's just like he walks by and looks in, right? That's all the script says. He walks by and looks in and sees his family and walks off. Like that's a playground for an actor. Like we know what he's feeling and what the script is implying, but how I play that is, it's endless. And Brandon, if you ask me how did I play that moment, I would say I don't know. It's just because that moment presented itself, and that's how I felt it at that moment when I saw them, and that the camera lens caught something that I wasn't even aware of, maybe, because and that's the incredible magical part of filmmaking and making art, as you all know, as in theater and acting and music. And it's like there's magic, and we don't know how that happened.
And the other beautiful thing is like, because we were indie film and we were such on a tight schedule, roughly 18-day shoot. And half of these shoots are like 1 or 2 takes. So like, again, yeah, I mean, like I'd work like that with like Clint Eastwood, you know, and like he captures so many moments of me where it's just like organic and like, or like just dumb. But the thing with this film is having actors that immerse into this universe completely and prepare to have those moments eternally so the camera can capture it. And also having a director that see those moments and be like, we can move on.
And that's the gift. That's such a gift to an actor, is to be able to play like that. And, you know, it's like we do have to study in order to play, you know? And so, yeah, it's an incredible process, but I would say that the script called for really to be prepared, right? It called for me to like not screw up this really incredible opportunity. So I better be prepared.
I mean, you better.
That was the direction for me? Don't screw up.
Yeah, you better be prepared and get that model right.
No, I mean, also like with writing the script, like I wrote it knowing that I'm an actor, right? You write the script so you allow the actor to come and collaborate with you, allowing the actor to show more than what is being told. If you're writing, I think you should also take an acting class and understand how actors process things, and also give them the space to show what they can bring and collaborate to the words on the page, you know.
That's why the writers have to trust their artists.
Anson, you once had a great segment idea for the show that whenever we interviewed actors, you wanted to ask a question of all of them. We usually forget, but I remember this time. It was a segment called Scroll to the Bottom.
Yeah. Well, when you work with and interact with a lot of actors over a period of time, you start to learn that little credit at the bottom of their IMDb page, there's usually a great story behind that credit. We did this with Doug Jones. I believe, I can't remember the name of that movie, but there's a great story he had about him and Randy Quaid, almost killing Randy Quaid.
Yeah, was it called Bug Smasher? Oh, who cares?
We really should turn this into an ongoing segment.
I asked Perry about his. I looked at his IMDb page, and it wasn't a movie credit. I looked down to the bottom of his page and found in the trivia section that he plays the shakuhachi flute, and read that in 2012 he was a guest soloist with Vangelis.
Wow.
On stage with Vangelis.
Wow.
So I asked him about that.
When I started acting in theater, and I couldn't get any roles in film, I tried. So on theater, while I was doing theater, I met a Japanese musician on an experimental theater festival at La Mama who was doing, experimental theater opera at La Mama, playing the shakuhachi, and it just kind of changed my life. So I ended up going to Japan to study shakuhachi under a master. I got a grant to do that, and then I had a child coming, at that same time, and then I dropped out of acting because I just couldn't live off of theater, and there was no film or TV like now. And so learning the craft of shakuhachi became an actual business that, I became the only American American that was trained in Japan to make and repair this flute. So I stayed home. I dropped out of acting to sort of be the stay-at-home dad. And then I saw the world change. Better Luck Tomorrow came about. Daniel Day Kim was on Lost. The streaming came about, Netflix, and I started to see Asian American content. And, so about 10 years had passed, and I got itchy. I was like, I got to get back on stage. I got to do something. And somebody told me that the Carrie Diaries was auditioning a shakuhachi player for some reason. I was like, oh my God, I should go audition. I had no experience for television and film. And I answered the ad. They cast me. So I ended up going on set and, shooting a sort of a special background, special talent. And then right from that, I went, oh, I got all this money for like one day of work, more than you would do in like, 3 months of a play. And I went, I think I want to do this for a while. And so I saw the community, the world changed. And then I got cast in the Nick, and that changed my life. And so it was just like, I stayed around. I got sidetracked with the shakuhachi, but I was really in love with the bamboo flute. And I would have been happy to, continue doing it. And I still actually do it and repair and have a little business when I'm, when I have time. But I feel very fortunate to have had that sort of side gig that I was able to do and love and make money, because a lot of actors, as you all know, can't really survive off the craft of acting. So, but I feel very fortunate. Yes. So, and then somebody from that gig in Doha, just out of the blue, found my website and said, hey, there's a concert. We're opening this cultural festival in Qatar, Doha, with a Vangelis. He's a composer for Chariots of Fire, Blade Runner. And I went, oh my God, next thing you know, less than 24 hours later, I'm in the Middle East playing my flute on stage with Vangelis, improvising, with 10 other world musicians to open the show. There's African drummer, Chinese erhu, sitar player from India. So it was like a world music ensemble that we improvised to open the show. It was an amazing moment in my life.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Was that a shakuhachi flute that you briefly are seen playing in the
No, it's a Hmong flute, right? That Kaylee said, hey, since you play the flute, why don't we bring in the Hmong flute? And that could sort of be a little backstory we don't know about.
I imagine with most musicians, if you play one thing, you probably you're curious and like to try out other instruments. I'm going to butcher the name. I've tried to, it's the one word in Hmong. Well, one of many words in Hmong. I can't attempt. I just destroy every time. The Hmong instrument, say it for me, Sharon. The ting?
Yeah, the thing. It's the bamboo reed instrument that is large and is played at funerals, and it's very difficult wind instrument to play.
It's that one that's long, right? And has sort of like a little tube, and there's a huge thing coming out of it. I saw it, it's a thing that Jerry watches on TV. There's a little performance of it. Yeah. I don't know where you would get a hold of one of those. But with the simple flute, I think there was some maker in Long Beach that actually made them, a Hmong maker. So they sent me a few of those to try, and it was difficult. It was a reed, a very different kind of flute that I play. And one thing really fascinated me was that it wasn't musical notation, like a musical Western music. We have the staff and dots on paper, and in shakuhachi we have the Japanese characters, and they each represent a whole. But with that flute, it was a poem. So the notes, each word each note is a word. And they speak the poem into the flute. And that was just amazing to learn.
Because I didn't know we actually have just a regular long flute, the Hmong long flute. Kayla's like, oh, we need to have Perry play a Hmong flute in this scene. I was like, so you're going to have him sit down and playing the phone, the big thing, what? And I was like, that will look weird. He finally told me, I was like, no, just like the Hmong flute. I was like, in my mind, growing up, all we saw was, the Laos version of it, and the Hmong with the big, almost banjo-ish,
Mm-hmm.
All we saw is that, not so much as just the regular flute,
Mm-hmm.
So then she showed me coverage, like, oh, okay.
It would have been weirder if I played that.
It's really weird to play the whole thing in the scene, so.
It would have been weird if I played that instrument traditionally, because they dance with it also, right? So
yeah, exactly. So it was like a weird debate between me and the director. So
hey, I would have went for it though, Doua. I would have went for it. I would have learned to dance.
Honestly, it is a bit of acrobatics too, because they roll with it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite the challenge if you ever want to, get into the physicality of music. What's next for you, Doua?
The next for me is, it's just kind of getting this film sold and dive into a more commercial film than an indie film. We want to dive into a horror film next. So, I'm not as famous as Perry Young, who's going to be on, whose Warrior is going to come out, and June 27th.
June 29th.
29th.
And Perry, besides Warriors, do you have other projects that you're working on?
Well, I'm going to try to get into Doua's commercial film that he's going to be working on soon. Let's see. I have a stage reading for a Broadway, which is kind of huge. I don't normally do Broadway, but they kind of found me and said, "Hey, are you interested in reading this role?" It's for the Farewell My Concubine that's coming to Broadway. It's just for a reading for them to still workshop the script. So I'm not a singer, so they probably won't cast me. That's one thing. But I also I'm going to make my first little film, and it's inspired by Doua, but it's my music group, Judo Club. And we wrote a song. The guitar player, Billy Asai, wrote a song called Stop Asian Hate. And we have a little film we want to shoot that makes it sort of like a film/music video. So we're shooting that next week in New York City, and we're going to do a fundraiser, a GoFundMe fundraiser to sort of raise funds to be able to finish it, make it and finish it. So I'm excited about kind of telling our story, right? Like I was telling other people that, I'm very inspired by Doua because you just have to say this, no one else is going to say this. No one else is going to tell this story but me. So I'm going to do it. And that's, with the pandemic and all the violence and hate towards our community recently, it's like, no one else is going to tell this story. So, I'm going to do it right now.
Amazing, guys. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
The Well is produced, recorded, and edited by Anson Mount and me, Brandon Edgens. Special thanks to our guest, Doua Moua and Perry Young, and of course to Sharon Herr for conducting the interview. Our theme music was written and performed by Jonathan Myberg. Till next time, have a great time.